everyone. Welcome to the SuperCoach AFL live show. It is round 20. That's probably the last round, sort of home and away round before the finals for most leagues out there. So plenty of interest here. We'll go through the teams as they come in. Paton here, of course, with Matt Forrest. And fellas, off the top, we do have to say this is, as far as I know, the only show that told everyone to get Jordan Sweet last week. And of course, that wasn't me. That was you. So tip of the hat. Probably the best call of the year. I won't ask if you actually brought him into your team. I'm guessing that probably is a no. But if anyone listens to your advice, obviously bank the 200 points. So keep a close listen to whatever Foz says to do this week.
He was in my team right up until I decided to go with Brodie Grundy instead. So it was about a 50-point reduction, and I spent an extra 400 grand on him. So I was a little bit flat, but I'll take the 150 points. I wouldn't expect from the start of last week. If Grundy doesn't outscore Sweet to the end of the season, I'd be very surprised. So I'm fine with the small loss for now, and I'll just take the run home from Grundy. But yeah, as he was scoring, I sent you a couple of messages, and I just.
Yes.
Said, hey, look at it, he's on 86, and it's not even halfway through the second quarter. And he did start to slow down a little bit, and I was like, he's going to finish 130, 140. It's still a pretty good score that I can gloat about, but first 200 of the year, pretty great.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then we nearly got a second one with Heaney. Just probably the last sort of 5 minutes or so on the bench probably cost him. We could have had two 200s in the 1 week. So, and I think there will actually be some pretty massive scores out there this weekend too. We'll talk captains when we get to that a little bit later on, and as we go through the teams. But yeah, there's some pretty tantalising sort of matchups for some guys that are pretty popular in SuperCoach. Lots of good captain options this week. So hopefully we get the right one. I mean, we can quickly kick off with the teams for tonight's game. Of course, Hawthorn, Carlton, not a huge amount of SuperCoach relevance there. I mean, Will Day is back for the Hawks, so that's huge for them. And I mean, from Will's point of view, obviously we want to see him go well, but probably not too well because we don't want him to get too expensive for the start of next year, because he's definitely one I think we'll be looking at again if he's at a pretty reasonable price, which he should be.
Yeah, it's an exciting sort of game for a number of reasons tonight. Hawks obviously playing for finals, which is very if they lose they won't make the 8. That's just as clear as day. And then obviously Sam Doherty retirement. So a couple of big sort of pointers to make this. We've had a couple of Thursday night games in the last few weeks that have been pretty average. Hopefully this one delivers the goods and is a close game for us watchers.
Yeah, no, it's tribute to Sam's been a great SuperCoach servant for us over the years. So just a couple of changes for the Blues, losing Francis Evans, of course, that tooth knocked into about the third row at the MCG by Stephen May, and Flynn Young injured as well, and Blake Acres and Harry Mackay comes back. So we haven't seen him for a while. I saw Leck put him in his articles, one of the, which don't know if that's live yet, might be live soon, but a little preview. He reckons Harry Mackay could be a sneaky little pickup in draft if he's still sitting around on the waiver wire for the last few rounds. So it just might be someone who people have missed. But if we get into the Friday night games, so 2 Friday night games, I'm not really sure exactly what the story is there, but the Bulldogs and Essendon is the first one at Marvel. Essendon made a couple of changes. So Dersmer is out injured. Archer May has been dropped, so that might be a few SuperCoach benches affected there. And Vigo Vizentini also out. Now coming in is Nate Caddy is back. Todd Goldstein comes in, and Saad El Hawley is back, the SuperCoach Messiah from midway through the year. I'm not sure how many people might still have him, but he could provide some bench cover for a few teams. And for the Dogs, they've dropped Liam Jones and Sam Davidson, and Jed Buslinger and Oscar Baker are the 2 inclusions. But I mean, I think if you've got any Bulldogs, any of those popular picks, obviously the Bont is a massive one, but I think Tim English will go really well. I mean, Libba, Bailey Dale, you just go reel through the list. There could be some pretty big scores here, I reckon.
Yeah, it certainly could be. It's just about getting which one goes nuclear and which one do you jump on. So yeah, I like Ed Richards for this one as well. The classic Bont sort of game where he's going to put up 160, 170. You can just feel it coming. He's overdue for a massive score.
Well, this is a replay of, they didn't play that long ago, did they? This is the game Bailey Dale had nearly 50 touches as well. Yep. So, and the Bombers have just lost a whole bunch of players since then. So be a bit of a struggle for them. But you think the Doggies should bank a win, which they definitely need to do. And the other Friday night game is the Battle of the Bridge of Giants and Sydney. And for the Giants, they get Sam Taylor back, Josh Kelly and Jesse Hogan come back in. And the players going out are Leek Aaliyah, Harry Rouston, and Max Gruszewski. And for the Swans, Tom Papley's back, Aaron Francis comes back in. Now, Peter Laddams is out, so that's interesting for us Brody Grundy owners, and Riley Bice has been dropped as well. So Laddams came in and gave Grundy a bit of a chop out last week. He started as the sub and did a fair bit of rucking in the last quarter, and Grundy sort of just cruised to a 150. But, he'll be back rucking solo this week against Kieran Briggs, who has given up some pretty big ruck scores this year too. So there's certainly another good VC option in Supercoach. Slightly annoying they play virtually at the same time as all the Bulldogs guys, but I'll be backing in Grundy for I think it's about his 7th or 8th score in a row, nearly over 150.
Yeah, if you don't have one of the Bulldogs midfielders, I'd be leaning towards Grundy as your Friday night VC option. As you said, big. He's in the form of his life at the moment. He's absolutely dominating and putting up massive scores, and throw on the fact that Kieran Briggs, while he's a good player, has given up some fairly big ruck scores this season. So I'd be leaning that way. Throw on the fact that Laddams is out of the side, probably helps a little bit. Grundy slowed down a fair bit in that last quarter. He spent the last 10 minutes on the bench and just let Laddams go to work. So it's good to see him being the complete sole ruck, with no real chop out option there. Hopefully we get another big score.
Yep. I think we'll be can back that one in. Now on the Saturday, and Gold Coast and Brisbane, another massive game in the Q Clash. And the Suns have had to make a few changes, a couple of forced, a few unforced. So Dan Rioli's out injured for pretty much the rest of the home and away season. Big blow for my Supercoach draft team. Ben Jepson straight out after one game. I know a few people brought him in last week as a 99K. Jed Walter's been dropped. David Swallow's been dropped, and Sam Closey's also injured. So coming in, Sam Collins, Lockie Weller, Alex Davies, haven't seen him for a while, Jaya Farah, one of Tim Mitchell's Supercoach favourites from a few years back, and Nick Holman. And 2 changes over at Brisbane. Kai Loman's back. He's injured again, and Bruce Revel is out. And Connor McKenna and Zach Bailey are the 2 ins for the Lions. So, pretty insipid effort from the Suns last week, and they'll need to show something here.
Yeah, I think it'll be a pretty good game. That's the one thing about this round is that there's bound to be a few upsets, and I've pegged the Suns as potentially one of them. Every non-Victorian side is playing the other team from their state, so that should be quite exciting. We got the derbies galore and the Q Clash thrown in there as well, the Showdown as well on Saturday night. So very exciting for hopefully some good games of footy. But in terms of a Supercoach, from a Supercoach point of view, this is there's no changes there are interesting at all, really. They're all pretty nondescript sort of players, unfortunately. Maybe you've got Zach Bailey in a draft league and you're apt to have him back as the finals kick off. But, and as you said, Dan Rioli missing for the next 4 to 6 weeks. It might prompt you to make a couple of trades.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned the Derby over in Perth is the next game on Saturday, and again some changes that are not going to affect too many Supercoach teams. Elijah Hewitt back in for the Eagles, so that might help a few people on the bench. Archer Reed is back as well for them. Jack Williams and Petruccelli go out, and for the Dockers, Corey Wagner and Matt Johnson are both injured, and Isaiah Dudley gets another crack, and Neil Erasmus. So just maybe some bench action there in Supercoach. But here's another one where we're looking at captains. I think last week the Eagles gave up Taranto and Hopper both scored 130 plus. What are Sarong and Brayshaw going to do here?
Yeah, I'd be leaning Brayshaw over Sarong, but the two of them have scored pretty well together at times. And as you said, Taranto had kicked a couple of goals with his 30 plus touches. So, that screams a bit of Brayshaw right there. I reckon he's one that'll strain forward and try and snag a couple as well. So, a very good Saturday afternoon. I know it's not super late, but if you're going to throw the VC on a Brody Grundy, then there's plenty of time to turn around and get a captaincy on one of these two Dockers who are, flying at the moment. They've had relatively inconsistent years, but the Tigers don't tag. I know that Sarong's pretty taggable, but I doubt they're going to send anyone to him, and hopefully they can both put up 130, 140.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty safe. And there were some people I know that were maybe hoping for a Sean Darcy rest here, but no sign of it as yet. But I mean, I still think Luke Jackson will score well, but maybe not quite in the captaincy discussion. But onto the Saturday night games, and we've got North playing Geelong. No changes for the Cats. North have lost Cooper Harvey to illness. Callum Coleman-Jones lasted about 15 minutes in his comeback game last week, so he's out. And Will Phillips has been dropped. And Zane Dersma, Finbar Maley gets another crack, and Robert Hansen Jr. come in. So, again, nothing there that I think is going to affect too many Supercoach teams. What do you think of, we've already sort of spoken about the Bulldogs, but I've got one trade that I'm probably going to use this week, catching up on Jason Horne-Francis, who I just sort of had sitting there last week, played with 22. This week I can make a move and get rid of him, and I'm looking at Matt Kennedy as maybe more of a bit of a safer, 90-plus sort of guy most weeks, and Jeremy Cameron's the other one I can afford, who is liable to drop a 51 week, but if he has a couple of good fixtures, he could really blow the roof off at the other end. So probably the big thing that's holding me back on him is, would the Cats potentially rest him at any stage?
Yeah, that is the one. It's the one concern. I don't think, and I brought in Cameron last week, and I was very happy with his 115-ish. But there's definitely the potential that he cops a rest on the run home. I don't think he does for a couple of reasons. One, he's leading the Coleman quite handsomely, but I think they'll just keep him in there and let him sort of chase that medal. But then also the Cats are trying to push for not only a top 4 spot and be cemented inside that double chance window, but also potentially snag a top 2 spot now that the Pies have dropped a game. They're not playing great footy. There is an opening there. Brisbane doesn't have the easiest game here as well for this against the Suns. So, there is a chance that they can sneak in and grab, a home final if they keep winning and probably have to win out from here. But there's a real chance that they get a double chance at home in finals if they, play well enough. So they might rest him. I mean, there's always a risk when you've got a few Cats players there. Holmes hasn't, really been rested yet, but we've seen Bailey Smith get rested a fair bit. Cameron's sort of in that sort of middle period between the two, where I don't think he's definitely going to get rested, but he's also not a certainty to play every game. So, one to weigh up, certainly. I went with the riskier move and brought him in, but Matt Kennedy's a really safe, 90 to 105 sort of operator. He hasn't really strayed too far from either end of that.
Yeah, because the Cats played Richmond in the last game, which is, it could be a 0 and just absolutely stranded if he is rested. But if he's not, it could be an absolutely massive score. So, it's depends how much you're prepared to roll the dice. So, have to make a call on that. But onto the Showdown on Saturday night. You talk about all the interstate rivalries. So, no change for the Crows. They're absolutely flying. So, some changes at Port Adelaide, and this is probably the big one for Supercoach this week. Connor Rosie has been named. So, they did sort of flag that today, didn't they, Port, and that he'll maybe do the captain's runs tomorrow and just have a final sort of test of that broken hand, but he looks like he will play, or he's in the team currently anyway. Jed McEntee comes in also, and Joe Berry's back. And out go Manny Liddy, who's on a few benches. Will Lorenz and Dylan Williams is also out. But, do you think you'd be confident of Connor Rosie lining up in this one?
Yeah, he said all signs sort of point to him playing. Obviously needs to get through a fitness test, which will happen tomorrow. We'll know more sort of in the afternoon to evening time, whether you need to make a move there. But it was flagged when he missed last week that it was only going to be a 1 weeker. He's trained fully this week, so all signs point to him playing. Hopefully he does, and we can not have to cop a donut or a rookie on field or whatever it may be for the coaches that own him.
Yep. On to the Sunday game. So, extended bench is here. The Tigers hosting Collingwood at the G. Richmond on the back of 2 wins. Noah Bolter comes back in, and his curfew's done now, so he can play for the rest of the year. Steely Green, Harry Armstrong, and Jasper Elgar are the other inclusions, and Seth Campbell is out with a concussion. And for the Pies, they've lost Bo McCreary's injured. I think he did his hamstring again. And the ins at this stage are Tim Membry, Tom Mitchell, Dan Houston, and Roan Steele. But again, not a huge amount of Supercoach relevance there. Nick Dacos, another great captaincy option. I think he scored about 140, 150 last time he played Richmond. And last week he just absolutely dominated, taking kick-ins, just doing everything. I suppose the only potential concern would be Jack Ross moved. Harley Reid had 20 touches in the first half last week, and they moved Jack Ross onto him, and he actually did a pretty good job of shutting him down. I think he had 6 or 7 for the second half. So would they potentially do the same for Nick Dacos? I probably wouldn't scare me off. But given there's so many other great captaincy options this week, maybe it is one tiny little thing to consider.
I think if you're still without a captaincy score on going into Sunday's games, it'd be between Dacos and Nazai Wanganeen-Miller, who we'll get onto in a second. But they're probably the two clear options going into the last game. It looks like Dan Houston will play, which is good. Tim Embry's are locked in to return as well, so that means that there's one other change coming for the Pies. But I think the main focus out of this game is Nick Dacos and how many points he's going to score.
Yep. Some of us Tiger fans, you never know. Miracles can happen. And the last game on the Sunday, which again, these games sort of overlap. It'll be about halfway through the second quarter or something when the second Sunday game starts, and that's St Kilda and Melbourne at Marvel. And again, not a lot of action here, Supercoach wise, in terms of changes. Darcy Wilson is injured for the Saints, and they've brought in into the squad at least Zach Jones, Lance Collard, Ari Schoenmaker, and Angus McLennan. Some big names there. And the D's have lost Stephen May, who's injured / suspended. Harry Sharp has been dropped, and Colton Tholstrup has also been dropped. And into the squad come Tom Sparrow, Charlie Spargo, Blake Howes, great Supercoach rookie from last year, was it? And Jed Adams and Jai Cully, potential debutants, as well as Harrison Petty. So, a few changes there for the Ds. But two teams who are at the wrong end of the ladder. I'm not sure. But it's pretty hard at this stage of the year. You're just trying to find something to take from the season, I suppose.
Yeah, it'll be one of those games that no one's going to remember too much from. It sort of just will happen. The fact that, I'm not a huge fan of overlapping games, but these are probably the two that you can get away with. I feel bad slagging them off. But it's I think, main focus is going to be looking at, for us, Nazai Wanganeen-Miller. If you still don't have a captaincy option there, he played full-time midfield last week. He's been named as centre-half back, which is no clear indication that he's going to not spend time in the midfield. But Melbourne leak points to opposing midfielders. They're not great against halfbacks either. It worked really well last week for the Saints against the Cats. He dominated as a midfielder. I know they lost, but had a really good game, and it freed up Jack Sinclair to have a really good game as well. So sort of a twofold sort of bonus for owners. But eyes will be on sort of Wanganeen-Miller from a Supercoach perspective there. And another one is Christian Petrarca always seems to do pretty well against St Kilda as well. So one to watch there at Marvel. Hopefully he can get his, he hasn't been kicking straight at all recently. So he's split his time half and half. And if he can kick a bag and get a good score, then owners who still have him, like myself, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think he's fairly widely owned, and he's been okay, but hasn't set the world on fire. So it'd be good to get a good score out of him. And the other one, of course, is Max Gawn, sort of ever reliable, and he does have some pretty good scores against St Kilda in his history. And the Saints, Rowan Marshall is sort of doing a little bit of ruck sharing with Heath, isn't it, at the moment? And some of the ruck scores against St Kilda in recent weeks have been pretty massive. There's been a couple. I think Darcy Cameron had a 150. So Lloyd Meek had a 140. So, I think Max would do pretty well as well. So there's a few. From a Supercoach point of view, there's actually a few players running around here that we will be watching pretty closely. And Naz, I've had an okay season, and he's definitely one I'll be picking him at the start of the year. He's just absolutely exploded post-buy. So that's it for the teams. Again, it's no Supercoach bombshells, which is good. I mean, that's what we wanted this time of year. We don't have too many trades or anything. So, and bench cover is pretty stretched as well. So at the moment, and hopefully if Connor Rosie gets in, even though I don't have him, but a lot of people do. So pretty good news mostly on the Supercoach front. And we'll get to, we already covered a fair few captains, but I guess we'll name our best ones in a second. Answer a couple of questions, but before we do that, it's time for our best bets for the round, powered by Better. Mine, I'm not even going to talk about mine last week, just blew up, didn't get anywhere close. So, Matt, we'll rely on you because you've got a much better record. But I can't remember exactly who you tipped last week, but I'm keen to know what you're looking at this weekend.
Yeah, I can't remember either, which makes me think that it lost. However, I do remember halfway through the weekend thinking to myself, "Oh, that's a chance." So I actually can't remember. I've got to go through the video or my notes. I'm going tonight's game, obviously an important game, as I sort of touched on before, with Carlton and Hawthorn playing for very different reasons. I'm going Hawthorn to win the third quarter by more than a goal. and I'm mulching it into a Sam Doherty goal at any time. That's make $4, and I just feel like I think the emotion will have worn off by the second half. That pure, adulation, adoration for Doherty. They'll still be playing for trying to get the win, but we know historically their third quarters are pretty weak, and Hawthorn's are pretty good. So I think we'll have a pretty comfortable win there. And then Doherty goal at any time they'll look for him. They'll set him up.
Yeah.
I don't care whereabouts he's playing on the ground. He's going to sneak forward and try and snag one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I like that. I went way too complicated last week, so just trying to keep it as simple as possible this week. And looking at all these Bulldogs against Essendon, and of course the odds are extremely short on most of these guys, but one that you can maybe get a little bit of value on, Tim English for 20 plus disposals is $2.20, so not a huge windfall, but I think he's a pretty good bet for that. Vigo Vicentini's been omitted and they're playing Todd Goldstein, but English I think will just run around and do whatever he likes. He's actually in some pretty decent form. Had a bit of a tougher matchup last week against Grundy, but I expect him to bounce back, and I reckon he can get that pretty easily. So, hopefully I can get one right this week. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen. It's 1-800-858-858 or visit the website gamblinghelponline.org.au. Now, we've been through a few of our captain options already, but we'll just see if there's any questions. I mean, there's not a heap of action. Not many people have trades left. So Matt asking whether Rosie could be a laid out. I mean, they are saying, they'll make a final decision after the captain's run tomorrow. So I think he's probably going to play. But even if he doesn't, I wouldn't use, if you've only got 2 trades left, surely he'd be back next week. Hang on to that trade.
Yeah, absolutely agree. If, it's 22 of your best, 22 best scores out of 23. So even if you're copying a donut and it's the one donut, you'll still have a full side technically. So I wouldn't be, if you're only down to your last couple of trades, I'd be trying to save them, stretch them for as long as possible. And then if you're, still in a fortnight's time, you've got 2 trades, and you can start looking at the final 2 upgrades or 2 moves to get in players for the last couple of rounds and really bump it up your run home.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just a quick one here from Mantra saying he's got 1 trade left. He's still got Jason Horne-Francis. We're thinking of going from him to Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller, which is a pretty good move. You can do that in flex. But then he's basically doesn't have an F6. So you've got 22 primos, and then he's been looping Archer May and I'm not sure if is it Cooper Harvey in at the F6 position, but neither of those guys are playing this week. So would you still go ahead with that? I mean, I played with only 22 last week with a sort of a dead F6 in Horne-Francis and got away with it and actually scored all right, but I don't know if I'd want to do it on a regular basis. I mean, if you're going down to 0 trades, you're sort of hoping that those guys come back, but there's no guarantees. But geez, Naz would be pretty tempting though.
Yeah, I'd be saying go for it, because if you don't do it, then you're going to have 2 donuts.
That's true. Correctly. Yeah.
So you got to make the move. I think Naz is a really good option. I started with him and I've been really happy with him. But as you said before, since this, around the halfway point of the year, he's just gone to another level. He's found his feet in the midfield, and he's still finding plenty of the ball in the back 6. So he's flying at the moment, and he's probably the one this week against Melbourne at Marvel to jump on. Yeah,
I'll do that. And if you have to play with 22, that's the beauty of flex. That's all you actually need. So just hope nothing else goes wrong on the weekend. But that's just about it. But we've mentioned heaps of potential captains. But who do you think you'll be settling on going to this week? I don't think you'd be probably picking anyone from tonight's game. But plenty of good options on Friday night and then across the weekend.
Yeah, not tonight's game. I'm looking at the Freo and West Coast game to sort of start my weekend. I haven't decided whether I'm going Luke Jackson or Caleb Sarong. They're my 2 options there. I feel like I'm going to lean Jackson just purely because he's playing in the ruck, but then he's also rolling through the midfield at the moment. So he sort of gets the best of both worlds against a team that is weak in both of those positions. So I'm hoping for that. And then, if that doesn't work for me, I'm looking towards Nick Dacos or Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. Haven't decided which one on Sunday, but hopefully I don't need to make a decision splitting the pair, considering Jackson's going to score 200.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Grundy's rucking sort of solo again against Briggs. That's pretty tempting, but then I've got Bont as well, and it's very hard to overlook Bont who can just roll out a 180 on his given night, and this could easily be one of those. So probably him, but Grundy does tempt me as well. I mean, these forms just can't deny how well he's been going. And then if for some reason whoever I pick doesn't score that well, I do have some options. I've got Brayshaw against the Eagles, and then on the Sunday, I was definitely looking at Dacos, but then you've got Gawn, or I've got Wanganeen Miller as well in that last game, and you make a really good point about Melbourne giving up points in the midfield and sort of halfback. So, sort of win-win there. So, a few options are probably Dacos. I still think, watching him live last week at the G, he was phenomenal. Just his work rate and getting back to take kick-ins and getting up the other end. And Doc has tried to sort of send Wagner to him a couple of times, and it didn't work at all. So I don't think any sort of real tempted tag from the Tigers is going to do much to stop him. So, pretty happy with him as a backup, and probably Bond for me on the Friday night. But, plenty of good options, and I think we'll see some pretty big scores this weekend. So hopefully that applies to you and everybody out there.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, no, I'm slowly working my way up the rankings. I had a top 2,000 score last week, so I finally, after long last, cracked back into the top 10K, and I'm eyeing off a top 2,000 or 3,000 finish, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I had my best week probably for the year last week too, and I'm up into the 3,000. So it'd be great to keep moving up, and you got people like Phantom going in the opposite direction, which helps a bit. So we'll see how we go. But it should be a pretty fun weekend, I reckon, from a Supercoach point of view. Thanks everybody for watching. Good luck out there. Thanks, Foss. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks, mate.